Hey, this podcast holds nothing sacred. This is Life, Tech, and Sundry. And what is Sundry? It's our experiences put in a melting pot to the internet. So join us on this wild ride called the LTS Podcast. Follow us at LT Sundry on Twitter, LTS.pod on Instagram, Life, Tech, and Sundry on YouTube, and all your favorite podcast distribution services. Stay frosty.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello. There I was, sitting, looking at my phone as I do, and it hits me how much we take for granted that 3-digit number that can literally save our lives. However, imagine for a single second that it's the 1960s. Actually, no, specifically in 1960. Yeah, let's go for the decade. You're standing in your kitchen and you just start smelling smoke, and the stove is not on, the microwave isn't on, and there's 911. You're staring at a heavy rotary phone, and if you haven't taped the local 10-digit fire department number to your fridge, you're in deep trouble. This is a solo LTS out of office, and I'm your host, Marcos Lopez. Today, I want to walk you through how we automated that chaos and why I believe the quote Neuralyzers end quote of the phone grid are the only reason our emergency systems haven't collapsed under the weight of modern noise. Kicking it off with The Matrix, and not the one including Neo. Talking about The Matrix of the 1910s. With the operators. Before the grid was digital, it was, you guessed it, biological. I want to take you back to a time when the network was powered by an army of women who held the physical threads of every conversation in their hands. Yes, people, in their hands. The physical labor of the switchboard. Picture a wall of cords that looks like the back of a high-end gaming PC. Damn. Like one can only dream right now with the RAM shortage. Operators had to manually plug and unplug lines in a rhythmic dance. At the peak of this era, the average operator was handling roughly 300 calls per hour. They were the literal CPUs of the early 20th, and because of that, there was a nickname given to these operators, which were the majority women. They were called, quote, "Hello girls," end quote. And these people, these workers, these ladies were very essential during World War I. These weren't just office workers. They were tactical communicators. They kept the lines of democracy open during global conflict. What are the receipts, you ask? Here we go. I'm gonna hit you with the facts. Over 200 women served in the Signal Corps in France, often working under shelling. You heard me. Under shell fire, while maintaining that professional tone the industry was built on. Now, obviously, not only were there women, there were teenage boys. And guess what? It was a disaster. So, here's another bit of history. The industry originally hired teenage boys to run the boards. It was basically a pre-internet version of a toxic COD lobby. Yes, teenagers. They're learning their social cues and all those things. Well, guess what? Some of them would get caught misdirecting phone calls or just being nosy and listening into calls and so on and so forth. What are the receipts? Well, records show they were frequently fired for being rude. Of course, teenagers, they're like, I can't even, and it would hang up. Eavesdropping, like I said before, on gossip, and intentionally misconnecting lines just for a laugh. You know the saying, is your phone running or is your refrigerator running? Well, go catch it. This was the other side. They were sending them to wrong locations. Mind you, these could have been important. So there were a lot of these teenagers fired, boys specifically. Now, with the human as a search engine. Remember Google? Yeah, well, before you could ask your your personal assistant. Like nowadays you have all those that I'm like the Amazon one, the search engine, the Google, the Bing, the Siri, all those. For a doctor, you just told the operator, I need Dr. Jones. And the operator, who majority of the times was a woman, she knew exactly which jack to plug you in. Receipts, you ask? Well, operators were the original social network. They often knew everyone's business and served as the town's directory. Now, what happens with this great system? Well, there's a scaling crisis. Eventually, the human brain hit a biological ceiling. As cities exploded in population, we realized we couldn't just keep hiring more people. What are the receipts, you ask? Well, by the late 1920s, yes, you heard me right, 1920s, engineers estimated that every woman in the United States would need to be an operator just to keep up with the projected call volumes in 1920. That's crazy. As we hit that limit, we need a way to call for help that didn't require a conversation. We need a code, a universal quote, who you gonna call, end quote, for the modern era. The birth of 911. The main event. In 1968, yes people, you heard me, 1968, the world of telecommunications got its first, quote, main character. And let me tell you about the 3-digit sequence that changed the stakes of survival. The Haleyville premiere. The first 911 call wasn't made in a tech hub like San Francisco. It actually took place in a small town in Alabama. What are the receipts, you ask? Well, Speaker of the House, Rankin Fite, made the first call from the mayor's office, and that red phone is now a museum piece. For other people in cartoons, you can think of the Powerpuff Girls with their mayor, and they had a big red phone right there to call the Powerpuff Girls. Well, continuing with the story. The ergonomics of 911. AT&T, damn, even back then from the late 60s to early 70s, AT&T didn't pick these numbers out of a hat. They were designed for a world of rotary dials and dark rooms. What are the receipts, you ask? Number one on the rotary dial was easy to find at the start of the dial, and 9 was the end. Also easy, 2 different ends, right? Right. Okay. You could literally dial for help by feel if your house was full of smoke. Now, the stranger things of telecom, 911 was designed as a pattern interrupt. It was a sequence that had never been used as an area code or service code. What receipt do you ask? Well, this uniqueness allowed mechanical switchboards to recognize the call instantly and shunt it to the highest priority. Yes, there were lines, so a phone called people in the queue, so 911 had to go to the top. The international 999 connection. I should mention that the United Kingdom beat us to the punch. They'd been using 999 since 1937 after a fire in London proved that operators couldn't clear lines fast enough. The British chose 999 because it was the ultimate don't think, just dial design. Just slide your finger to the end of the dial 3 times, and there you go. The burden of success. The problem is that once 911 became a household name, everyone called it for everything. Yes, even prank calls, like I previously mentioned. It became the, quote, main character and started getting overwhelmed. Receipt, you ask? Well, say less. Experts estimate up to 25% of 911 calls are actually non-emergencies, which is why the system needed to buffer. It needed to grow. Well, to save 911 from being trampled by the quote, noise of everyday life, the FCC had to hire out help. I like to think of these next numbers as the, quote, Neuralyzers, end quote, like Men in Black, to distract the mundane anomalies, kicking it off with the N11 family tree, the Neuralyzers, like I previously said. This is where we answer the age-old question, what's the 411? And look at the specialized lines that keep our emergency infrastructure from redlining. We have 311 and the office space filter. This line was built to catch the TPS reports of the city, like potholes, abandoned cars, and the noise complaints. So if you are in the United States and have a complaint that there's too many potholes, there's too many cars speeding on your street, or there's a car that nobody's been at for a while, well, dial not 911, because that's still in my heart right now. Dial 311. By the way, Baltimore was the first to try this in '96, and they saw an immediate 25% drop in non-emergency calls. It worked all the way to today. Now we have the iconic 411, the OG search engine. Before you could Google a pizza place, you had to ask a human for, quote, 411, end quote. It's a phrase that basically defined the noise. What are the receipts? Well, at its peak, this was a multi-billion-dollar industry. People were paying up to $2 just to get a phone number. Then you have 811, 111, 811, and Final Destination Prevention. This call is the proactive line. It's the, quote, call before you dig number that keeps me, all those gardening projects from becoming a neighborhood explosion. So your gas lines, low. Long story short, what are the receipts? Well, as of this year, what we have of data, every 6 minutes, a utility line is damaged because someone didn't call 811. It's the most important number you never think about. Mind you, I almost messed it up at the beginning. And then, this one's a serious one, is 988, the Empathy Network. This is a vital modern addition. It handles mental health crisis, diverting them away from police dispatch and towards trained counselors. Since 2022, 988 has handled millions of calls in the United States, providing a specialized response that significantly reduces the risk of tragedy. Together, these lines act as a triage system. They ensure the right, quote, neuralyzer is neuralizing the right anomaly at the right time. Hierarchy is the only way a modern city can handle millions of requests without dispatchers losing their mind. But look, none of these shortcuts matter if the call doesn't know where to go. This is where we get into the invisible mission impossible tech running under the floorboards, the tech stack, selective routing. I want to pull back the curtain on what happens when you dial those 3 digits. It's a sequence of events so fast it would make Ethan Hunt's head spin, and he's hung off on the side of a plane with his bare hands. The tandem switch sequence. Your call doesn't just go through. It triggers a series of high-speed handshakes between your provider and the local emergency router. This happens in milliseconds, ensuring your cry for help isn't stuck behind a routine software update or a Fortnite patch. The magic of selective routing. The system identifies your location and shunts the call to the specific PSAP for your exact jurisdiction. This is why I can call 911 from a cell phone and get a local dispatcher, even if my phone number is based off a California area code. Now, This is basically your XY, right? And if you're talking about like coordinates on the map, a grid coordinate, it's an XY coordinate. Well, turns out we live in buildings, or the geography is different. You're gonna need that Z axis, that third dimensional. Well, I have a solution brought to you by the Z-axis data and the high rises. Well, here's the problem. The high rise problem. We're finally solving the mystery of the third dimension, and it's not about aliens or any higher dimensions for now. Telling dispatchers which floor of a building you're on, not just their street corner. New mandates require vertical accuracy up to 3 meters for you international listeners, and for us, according to my search engine, it's allegedly 9.84 feet. I'm rounding it up to 10 feet, okay? Like I said before, 3 meters, well, for us in the United States is 10 feet, which is like a story or a whole floor 10 feet. Yeah, that's not bad. A massive jump from the somewhere in the building era, or you just had to tell like other people that were dialing had to know the address or the apartment number, which is crazy, man. It's just crazy. Very, very crazy. The PSAP hubs. Well, you've been asking yourself, these aren't just call centers. They're high-tech nerve centers. The, a typical dispatcher nowadays is managing up to 5 different screens at once. Like in the Matrix, you know, all those monitors like that's reading code, that's a dispatcher. Oh yeah, it is. I think they do say dispatcher in that movie. Whatever. What's the receipt, you say? Well, they act as the air traffic controller. And you already know how important it is, an air traffic controller. With modern news, what's happened, you know, in different places. For local police, fire, and emergency services, all while staying incredibly calm. With all this, there's unfortunately the fragility of the analog backbone. We're still in a transition period. Much of the underlying system still relies on copper wire logic that we're slowly phasing out. Outages in the last decade have shown how a single software bug can silence 4 entire states, which is why the cloud is the next frontier. We're standing at the edge of that analog cliff right now, looking toward a future where grid doesn't just react to emergency, it predicts them. The future, you ask? Well, it has AI and next generation, or next gen for short. I'm looking at what's coming next, and it feels like we're moving towards a Minority Report kind of world where AI helps us neutralize chaos before it even starts. Next generation 911, or for short, NG 911. This shift to IP-based or internet provider-based systems means you can finally text, send video, or stream live photos to a dispatcher in real time. This allows dispatchers to see the scene before help arrives, which can be a game changer for identifying weapons or medical symptoms. The AI co-dispatcher. Imagine an AI quote, Jarvis, end quote, sitting next to every operator, providing real-time language translation and automated triage for mass emergencies. Automated aid, automated triage. I'll go for triage. Same thing, right? We're already testing AI that can detect the sound of a stroke or a gunshot in the background before the caller even speaks. Predictive Neuralyzer strategy. By cross-referencing 311 and 211 data, these can identify stress clusters and deploy resources before a 911 call even needs to be made. Data scientists have found that the spike in street light outages often correlates with a future spike in crime. Proactive grid healing is the goal. IoT integration. IoT stands for, by the way, as Internet of Things. Your car, your watch, and even your smoke detector are becoming active participants in the grid. They call for help when you can't. Apple, Crash detection is a perfect example for a device acting as a silent witness and initiating the rescue sequence automatically. The vision beyond. We're heading towards a global, unified emergency language, no matter where you are on the map. Help is always 3 digits and a few milliseconds away. The end goal is to fail-proof mesh networks where satellites and mesh tech keep the Neuralyzers on duty even if the local tower goes down. And not one tower, multiple towers go down. It's a brave new world, but even with all this tech, the human element, the hello at the other end, remains the most important part of the code. This has been your host for the solo LTS out of office, Marcos Lopez, from Hello Girls with their physical cords to the AI dispatcher of tomorrow. The story of us trying to stay connected when it matters most. The next time you see a 311 or 811 sign, give it a little nod. It's the Neuralyzer doing the hard work so that when you need to call, the line is open. Now remember to stay connected, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Links in the description. You know what to do. Much obliged. Give your dispatchers or this podcaster, a cup of coffee. Links in the description. Share this with anyone that you think might appreciate this little information, that you can still use those systems. Tell me your story. If you've ever used, obviously 911 is number one, but every other one. I want to hear it in the comments, wherever you're listening to this podcast, or reach out to me on social media. Thank you very much and stay frosty.